me. This is the Vulnerable, and in case you're just joining us, you've not missed anything. We're just starting. With me in the studio today, I have Barrister Taiwo Akinlami.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us, sir. He's come all the way from Lagos, and it's a very great privilege having you around, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Sir, can you tell us a little about you?
Well, my name is Taiwo Akinlami. I was born March 24, 1970, and I had a very, very interesting childhood in that I suffered certain childhood abuse, which has impact on whom I became as an adult. I suffered physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. And when I became an adult, I was supposed to relate as an adult. I was supposed to take responsibility, but I could not because my childhood was totally messed up. And I keep saying that our nation does not have leadership problem, we don't have education problem, we don't have marriage problem, we have only one problem. It is mismanaged childhood manifesting in dysfunctional adulthood. Who we are today is a function of how we were raised. So I went through all of that, and February 16, 1997, I gave my life to Christ. That was a turning point in my life, and I began to find help for myself. I began to read, I began to study, I began to counsel, go for counseling and all of that. And before I knew it, my life began to take a new turn. Things began to work for me in another dimension that is positive. And so I've spent the last 20 years of my life to call attention to this thing that has worked for me, to call attention for how that can help the protection of our children, the preservation of their childhood, and ensuring that none of them is exposed to the kind of things that I was exposed to. So basically, that's my commitment, and that's why I'm here today, and that is why I realize I make it a commitment that today, for example, has been declared as the word Democracy Day. Well, again, in development space is what we call World's Day Against Child Labor and Trafficking. The whole world is coming together to say today we do not support child trafficking. We are opposed to child trafficking. No child should be trafficked. No child should be subjected to child labor, because that is not in the spirit of development. That is not in the spirit of transformation. That is not in the spirit of the future that our children, represent. So very key. So basically, those are the things for me. I am interested in bringing to the very front burner of private and public conscience and consciousness matters relating to this.
Thank you very much. You really said a lot about what we are here to do today. And I think people out there need to know. The problem there is ignorance. People need to know and know what's going on. People are not saying it. We are carried away with the democracy. We are carried away with the light problem. We are carried away with most of the little problem we don't know is affecting our day-to-day activity and affecting our children generally. So I would ask, brings me to this first question. What exactly is child trafficking and child labor?
Well, it is important to differentiate child labor from helping a child, teaching a child to be responsible within the home. A child should do home chores. A child should help the parents. A child can be in the company of the parents, in the shop. All of those things are responsibilities that we must teach our children. They must know how to be responsible. They must know how to play their part. Because children are not created as liabilities. Children are never liabilities. So they want to be responsible. But that, when we talk about child labor, it is forceful. It is a kind of labor that hinders the child from pursuing education, that hinders the child's personal development and social development, that reduces the child to a commodity instead of a human being. And a child does not have power to give consent for labor. And when you talk about trafficking, trafficking simply means there are two kinds of trafficking. There is international trafficking, there is local trafficking. International trafficking is where you take a child outside the shores of Nigeria, and the child, is or yes, outside the shores of Nigeria, and the child becomes a laborer. Now, local trafficking is when you traffic. For example, you can traffic a child from Lagos to Ibadan. You can traffic a child from Abeokuta to Ojuelegba in Lagos. So that's child trafficking. It is to remove a child forcefully, most importantly, with or without the consent of the primary and the secondary caregivers, and move the child to another place for the purpose of child labor, for the purpose of prostitution, for so many other reasons.
Now, sorry, sir, is it the sole responsibility of the parents to take care of a child? Because you said yourself that child labor is not, children should still do, a child should still do house chores, should still stay with the parent to work, shouldn't be a liability. Now, who is responsible for it? If it's not the parents, is it that they are not the one causing this?
Well, no man is an island. The parents are not an island. There are 4 wings of protection when it comes to protecting children. The first one is the family. The second one is the community. In the community, you have the school. In the community, you have the media. In the community, you have the churches. In the community, you have the mosque. All of these people have a responsibility to protect children. Then the third ring of protection is the state. The state makes policies, the state creates policies and ensure that those policies are enforced. Then the fourth one is the international community. Now, the responsibility of all of the international community, the state, and the community is to empower the family so that the family can effectively play their role, as caregivers. So there now brings in, how do you empower the family? Then the state, for example, must make provision for social protection. Very, very important. Social protection includes job for the family. All of those things must be in place so that the family can play their role.
All right, talking about playing role, we'll be going on a short break. When we come back, and you'll be enlightening us more on this responsibility. What are the things the children should know? I think if the children know their right, the parents know what to do about it, and then what of the case of less privilege? We'll be right back discussing all this. And with me again, don't go, is Barrister Taiwo Akinlami. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Immaculate, God's home.
No, Barrister has been telling us that this thing is not just the problem of now. We are talking about the future. We're talking about the tomorrow of Nigeria. When is it that we're going to have to stop having corrupt leaders, and we're going to stop having people that will make environment unsafe for everybody? Now, how do we have safe environment? Is by breeding the children that will make things good for everyone. And Barrister has been educating us on how to do this. And you know, just before we left the other time, you were telling us about child rights.
Yes, I said that there are four rings of protection. So the family, the state, the international community, and the community have a role to play in empowering the family. And this empowerment includes information, training the family, getting the family ready, and secondly, social protection. Social protection, we talk about provision of social services for families. For example, I went to public school all my life, public primary school, public secondary school, public university. I'm a public child. I went to Lagos State University to read law. My school fees in Lagos State University was 19 naira. But today, you know, my parents were not rich, not near it. My father was a junior staff in Old National Bank, defunct, and my mother was a trader who never saw the four walls of school. My mother could not speak English language, but I had access to education. I've courtesy the free education program of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I was that partnership between the government and between the religious organizations produce quality education for us. My primary school was a faith-based school. My secondary school was a faith-based school. My university was a government-sponsored school. That's why my school fees could be 19 naira. But all of that, you know, has changed. The truth of the matter is that today Nigeria has the highest number of children that are out of school in the world. 10.5 million Nigerian children are out of school. We are the highest in the world. We are beating Somalia. We are beating Syria. We are beating Yemen. We are beating Egypt. We are beating Libya. All these countries that I've mentioned to you, they are one-ton countries. Yet we are beating them. Not only that, 50% of all the children out of school in the world, they are from Nigeria.
So,
wow.
Sorry, sir. Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you, sir. Are we going to blame what you're saying on poverty?
Well, this is the point. So when social amenities are not available, when parents have to fend for their children's education, what happens is that there's the necessary pressure on them. There's no nation on earth where the educational system is doing well that all the investment or most of the investment is from the private sector. You know, you find that there is a level of commitment from the private sector and there's a level of commitment from the public sector, to the point that a private education does not become an alternative to public sector. Both of them must be existing together. The private sector, the public sector, then people who can afford private sector will go to private sector. And those who can afford private sector will go to private sector. But what do we have today? Private sector has become an alternative to public sector. So you find that people now, you know, people now register their children in school because there's no alternative. And that ought not to be so. You mentioned something about the underprivileged. I don't think there's underprivileged in Nigeria. These people you call underprivileged, they don't exist. And if you call them underprivileged, it's to manage our guilt. This is the point. For you to be say somebody is underprivileged, now it means that you are saying that the person does not have privileges. Now what we are dealing with is that our children don't have rights. Many of them don't have access to security, they don't have access to education, they don't have access to health, they don't have access to basic things of life. When they lack access to all of those things, what they are denied of are their rights. What they are denied of are their entitlements. What they are denied of are their identity. What they are denied of are their own security. That's what the children are denied of. So they are not underprivileged, they are the denied. They are the abandoned. They are the children of the drawers of water and hewers of wood. They are the oi polloi, the neglected, the rejected, the wretched of the earth, like Fano will put them. That is the people, those are the people we are talking about when it comes to people who are raising children in the lower class. The gap between the have and the have not is so wide that most people who are trying to raise children today live on less than $1 per day. How much is $1? 360 naira or 65 naira, depending on where you are changing your money. But that the point now is that our people, many of our children, you know, many of the parents that are supposed to raise children are living like that. When they live like that, it's going to have implication on children. There's no child of the rich. You know, child of the well-to-do who are on the street hawking. How are they going to get there? Except when they run away home because of abuse and all of that. But the truth of the matter at the end of the day is that we cannot continue like this. We have to start a form of advocacy that will recognize the fact that school fees, hospital bill, and all of this distract parents. We have to start an advocacy that will ensure that our 10.5 billion children are now in school. We have to start an advocacy that will show us how does government intend to move these 10.5 million people into school. We have to start an advocacy that will show us what is the plan for health, what is the plan for education, what is the plan for shelter. All of this must be clearly stated plans that we must see, and we must be able to evaluate, we must be able to ratify, we must be able to reject, we must be able to add, we must be able to delete. These are fundamental things that are critical for us to know. But as long as we don't address all of that, we keep dressing the issue, we sweep it under the carpet. A day like this comes, we eulogize some people, we sing songs, and we do all of that. And that's why I must commend what JDPC is doing. I mean, wow, last year they brought me. I was here, to address stakeholders. And they shared with me that they experienced certain improvement, certain result. And that's why we came again this year. And I'm so glad today that leaders of government were there. The Commissioner for Education in this state was there. The Commissioner for Women Affairs were there. The head of NAPTIP was there. We had, and parents were there, teachers were there, even children were there. Yeah. And we had a fruitful deliberation and a fruitful discussion. And it was awesome. It was powerful. And I believe that something new is happening. Something new is going to take place. And we have said that government may not be able to do everything. And we can't blame everything that is happening today to the present government, because they have met a lot of road. But what we are saying is that government should focus on one area. Is government saying that we want to solve the problem of education? Let them solve the problem of education. Are they saying they want to solve the problem of health? Let them solve the problem of health. These are areas that are important that we begin to focus on, so that we can begin to say that we can give our children a future and a hope.
Talking about the activities of the JDP, it was a very good one of the JDPC. We had one with them just last week, where they had the children and encouraging them, gifts were given and all. Now, is the government not doing anything at all about this? Or what is it exactly? Who are we going to blame for all this?
There's nobody to blame. I don't believe in blame. I believe in identifying. I've spoken about the problems. I believe in identifying the problem, and I believe in finding solutions to the problem we have identified. There's no perfect nation on earth. We are a developing nation, or underdeveloped. We're a third world country. As a third world country, there are challenges, there are issues. The only thing that is missing is that we are yet to recognize that rights are not granted on a platter of gold. Anywhere right is granted, there has to be agitation. There has to be a level of pushing. There has to be a level of asking for. I'm not talking about antagonism. I'm not talking about going to social media and calling people names. I mean, as a matter of fact, I call that infantile radicalism, a lot of immaturity. But when you are matured, you find problem, you prefer solution. And the solution that I provide is the fact that we need to recognize that our nation does not have a future outside our children. We need to recognize that if we don't pay attention to our children today, tomorrow, these children are going to become our Waterloo, they're going to become our headache, they're going to become our crisis, they're going to become the reason why we're not able to sleep at night. If we send our own children abroad and the children here are not taken care of, one day our children are going to come home. They don't need to stay too long in Nigeria for them to be robbed. They don't need to stay too long in Nigeria for them to be mobbed. They don't need to stay too much in Nigeria for them to run into trouble with hoodlums and all of that. Because no child was born hoodlum. No child was born stubborn. No child was born a agbero. All of this, when you see Agbero, when you see all of these people, they are creations of society. And until society begins to understand that if we are going to change that, we need to change what these people are exposed to. And that can begin to be the reason upon which we can begin to do something new, something different, something that will change our world. I think those are basic things that we need to pay attention to. We cannot continue to say, you see, what all it takes for evil to triumph is for men of goodwill to fold their arms and do nothing. And again, Claire Booth said, there are never hopeless situations, there are only hopeless people. So if we can arise and begin to talk about this thing, it's a good thing we're having a conversation. Every revolution, every change in society must begin with a conversation. Start with a thought, start with a conversation. The conversation is communicated, and from there we begin to move forward. So even talk alone, the fact that there's social media, the fact that we can discuss, is a major step forward, which we must take.
Now, on education, so far we've noticed that the budget being put on education is very low. We just got an information, a rumor right now that it's just 8% or thereabout is being put on education, while the standard is supposed to be 26%. that is supposed to be put on the 26% of the budget, minimum of 26%. Now, we are not blaming anybody for this. I'm sure whoever it is that's supposed to make things happen is watching this right now, and people are working on it. My question is going to be this, sir. These privileges. Okay, let me stage this situation, sir. A parent that cannot afford to feed the child, because you ask parents that you see their children on the street, you probably even see their parents with them. When a parent cannot afford to feed a child, what do we do about this?
Well, that's why the place of social security comes in. That's why the place of welfareism comes in. That's why the place of social protection comes in. We have to ensure that our people are able to afford basic things of life. The welfare and the security of the people shall be the primary aim of government. That is the constitution of Nigeria. So government must take responsibility for welfare and security. Now, in a situation where a woman is on the street and is not able to take care of the children, those children should be taken away immediately by government. Those children should be enrolled in school. The woman should be provided accommodation. If she needs a job, she should be provided one. For a level of skill, a level of understanding, a level of exposure, she should get something to do. Everybody within a state should be catered for, because the greatest title you can have in the world is the fact that you are a citizen of a country. That is the greatest honor, and it's the greatest thing that you can boast of. And so your citizenship must not become a liability. Your citizenship must not become your Waterloo. Your citizenship must not become your crime. Your citizenship must not become your sadness, your sorrow, your depression. Your citizenship must be an advantage. As you pay your dues as a citizen, you must get certain things in return. And that is why we need to focus on education. That is why we need to focus on health. That's why we need to focus on security. As a matter of fact, UNESCO says 28% of national budget should go into education. But the question is that from time immemorial, I'm not sure there's any government in Nigeria that has ever invested 28% of the budget in education. So this government will not be the first, it may not actually be the last. And the question is this: what work are we doing as citizens? I think, you see, we are in a country where we blame government a lot. And I want to say that our government comes from us. Anybody who is in government today was once a citizen. So if you are a citizen today, if you are a citizen yesterday, and you are still a citizen today, and you are in government today, then you are a product of the system. If you are a product of the system, and all you know is to enrich yourself, all you know is to sort yourself out, all you know is to enrich your family, then something is wrong with the source from where we pick our leaders. And we need to focus on followership. We need to focus on who we are as followers. We need to focus on the things that interest us. We need to focus on the things that we desire. That is very, very critical. Until we do that, you find that we keep pointing accusing fingers, we keep criticizing government, we keep shouting and nothing changes. But if anything is going to change, we need to criticize ourselves as followers. We need to sit down and ask ourselves the question: what do we need? What do we need to do? Who is going to lead that advocacy? What are we going to do about that advocacy? Have we done a research on which government in Nigeria has budgeted the biggest and the highest to education? We need to understand that. Which government has budgeted health? What did they achieve? What did they not achieve? What are we achieving now? I think those are basic things that is important for us to begin to pay attention to. As citizens, I think we have a lot of work to do. And until we work, we just keep criticizing and nothing changes.
Thank you very much. We've been with Barrister Bimbo Akinlami, Taiwo Akinlami. We'll be going on a short break now. We'll be right back after the break. Do stay with us. In case you're just joining us, you're on to Immaculate TV, and we're on Vulnerable with Barrister Taiwo Akinlami, and he's been telling us a lot about child rights and the effect on the family, the effect on the society at large. You know, where we have our government concentrating so much on petroleum, putting most of a budget on electricity for a very long time, which we actually don't see much effect on, and so many other things like that. We see education that's supposed to have a minimum of 26% or 28% of the budget having merely 8 or 2% of the budget, and this is alarming, affecting our society at large, causing increase in the crime rate, and also making the future of this country uncertain. Now, sir, you're going to be advising the parents and the government on how you've talked about it, you've touched it, but what are the things that we should just we should look in to make sure this doesn't keep happening?
Well, as I said, all it takes for evil to triumph is for men of goodwill to fold their arms and do nothing. So I think that every change, as I said before, begins with a story, begins with a conversation. It's a good thing that we're having a conversation. I want to advise parents, number one, if you are well-to-do, you have the resources, focus on your children. Reach out for knowledge. Knowledge is what to do with children. Reach out for skill. Skill is how to do it. Reach out for attitude. Attitude is the fortitude to do that which you know you should do. Learn. You don't move from passion to doing. That you are passionate about having children does not mean you should have children. And when you have children, you just have to be responsible. You have to learn. You have to invest. You know, if you are a medical doctor, you have not become a medical doctor by merely the fact that you are old enough. It's because you have prepared yourself for it. And for government, the problem may appear, seemingly insurmountable. It may appear very big. But what I want to charge government to do is that focus on an area. For example, if in your state, for example, if you say, I want to solve the problem of education, I want to understand how many children that are out of these 10.5 million Nigerian children that are out of school, how many of them are in your state?
Yes, sir.
How do I ensure that that all of these children are now schooled, they are able to go to school? How do I ensure that at least I give them the first 9 years, that's universal basic education? How do I ensure that? I think there's a lot we can do. We don't know the much we can do except we try, and that's why I'm calling on government to try, and that's why I'm calling on us also to keep putting pressure on government, advocating, doing advocacy and all of that, not by abusing government, not by cursing government, but by knowing that we are partners with government in progress, and ensuring and keep insisting that in all gentleness of wisdom, in all sincerity, and in all faithfulness, we keep following our government and ensure that the rights of children are protected and child labor becomes a thing of the past in our country.
Thank you very much, sir. Looking at today being the Democracy Day, I would just like to ask this last question. What is it? How does it affect children? How do we see children having an advantage in all this?
Well, the truth of the matter is that it's Democracy Day, and there's no democracy without the future. Our children are our future. Whatever you cannot, success without the successor is failure. So my thinking is that Democracy Day is here. Democracy must be celebrated in the best interest of our children. We must look at what policies can we put in place, what laws can we put in place, what programs can we put in place to ensure that our children enjoy the dividend of a democracy. And the best way to do that is to ensure that the rights and the responsibilities of our children are respected, so that because if you mess up your today, definitely there's no tomorrow. Yesterday is in the tomb, it's been buried. Tomorrow is in the womb, it's not been born. All we have is today, and our children represent today, not tomorrow. Children are not leaders of tomorrow, they are leaders of today. They began to lead from the day they were born, and because leadership simply means ability to take responsibility. And so we need to understand all of that and put all of that at the feet of understanding that democracy is useless if it does not touch the life of our average citizen, including a child.
Thank you so much, sir. In case you're just joining us, you've missed a lot. We've been with Barrister Taiwo Akinlami on The Vulnerable, and we've been discussing child rights and privileges. It's been a great time. Now, I'd like to part with these things. He said that we need to know, not just the parents, the government, and the children. We all need to know. We need the skill, we need the knowledge, we need the skill, we need the attitude, and we need to learn. Now, someone once told me that whatever information you're trying to pass, attitude is more than 70% of that information. If you're trying to tell someone to shut up, the way you tell the person matters a lot. And so you are seeing the importance of this. I think the attitude of everyone to this issue will determine how we get to eradicate this and promote ourselves, giving ourselves a sure future. My name once again is Olupesayo Kwemi, and I'm with Immaculate TV. Thank you for joining us. See you again next time.